My mom raised me alone for 15 years, but she never let me breathe. So when I got married, I didn't invite her. My husband said she was pathetic, and I agreed. Now that my marriage has fallen apart, she refuses to take me back, saying I made my choice. I, 28F, was raised by my mother, Kathy. She was a single parent since the day I was born, and for most of my life, everyone around us treated her like some kind of saint. She did it all alone, they'd say. You're so lucky to have a mother that loves you this much. That was the story everyone saw. The one I lived was completely different. My mother never hit me. She never screamed or got physically violent, but she was everywhere, all the time. Every thought, every choice, every small moment had her fingerprints on it. If I wore something she didn't approve of, she'd cry until I changed. If I made a friend she didn't like, she'd make me feel guilty for leaving her alone. I wasn't allowed to go to sleepovers or join school clubs because she'd say, "You have no idea how much I give up for you, and you can't even spend time with me." I learned to hide small things just to have some privacy, hobbies, messages, even the way I dressed. It wasn't that she was cruel in a traditional sense. It was more like she smothered me with love until I couldn't breathe. If I tried to push back, she'd cry, saying things like, "I guess I'm just a terrible mother then," until I gave in. I think she believed she was doing the right thing, but it came from a place of fear, not love. She couldn't stand the idea of me having a life that didn't include her. When I was 15, I started saving small amounts of money from a tutoring job, just to have something of my own. I hid the cash inside an old shoebox under my bed. She found it one day while cleaning and accused me of planning to run away. I didn't say anything, but that was exactly what I was planning, not to disappear forever, just to have a way out someday. After that, I started doing everything quietly. My rebellion wasn't loud, it was in silence, in secrets, in the little pieces of myself that she didn't know about. When I left for college, it was the first time I could breathe. I remember sitting in the dorm the first night and feeling scared but free. I met Brandon there, the man who'd later become my husband. He was confident, funny, and most importantly, he didn't make me feel like I had to justify existing. My mother hated him instantly. She said he was arrogant and disrespectful, but deep down, I think she saw that he was someone who wouldn't tolerate her control. He saw through her in ways I hadn't learned to yet. Things with her got worse when she started showing up unannounced at my apartment. She'd find reasons to fight how I didn't call enough, how I was letting Brandon turn me against her. She'd cry in front of my roommates, play the helpless mother role, and when I'd finally cave and apologize, she'd act like everything was fine. It was exhausting. The final straw came during my third year of college. She arrived at my apartment without warning, found Brandon there, and accused him of taking her daughter away. She went on for hours. I told her to leave. She refused. So I packed my things and went to stay with Brandon. I didn't go back. That was the moment I decided I couldn't keep her in my life anymore. It wasn't a calm decision. It was desperate. I blocked her number, deleted her from social media, and moved without giving her my new address. It caused a huge family fight. Some relatives sided with her, others with me, but I didn't care. For the first time, I felt like I could live my own life. Years passed before I heard from her again. When Brandon and I got engaged, she somehow found out through Facebook. She emailed me saying she deserved to be at the wedding because she raised me alone when nobody else would. I didn't respond. She sent a few more emails, all variations of guilt, all ending with how much I owed her. I didn't invite her. Brandon agreed with me, though a part of me noticed how pleased he was about it. On the night before the wedding, when he called her pathetic, I laughed along. I think I was trying to convince myself that cutting her off was the final thing to gain my independence. After the wedding, things were good for a while. Or maybe I just thought they were. Brandon was attentive, protective, but slowly, that protectiveness started to feel familiar. He'd ask me to stop talking to certain friends because they didn't really support me. He said he wanted to handle our finances because I was too trusting. It was the same control, just wrapped in different words. Every time I brought it up, he'd say, "At least I'm not like your mother." Like that excused everything. Somewhere along the way, he became the voice in my head that she used to be. By the third year of our marriage, I felt trapped again in a nicer house, with a different name, but trapped all the same. He'd criticize what I wore, how much time I spent out, how I talked. When I mentioned therapy, he said I was looking for problems that didn't exist. When I tried to talk about leaving, he laughed and said I wouldn't survive without him. That was the same thing my mother used to say, that I wouldn't make it on my own. Last year I finally did it. I left. I didn't have much money, and I didn't even care. Then I packed what I could and took a bus to my hometown. I hadn't seen my mother in over 8 years. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe not forgiveness, but some kind of comfort. She was still my mother. I showed up at her door one evening, nervous and shaking, and when she opened it, she just looked at me for a long time. Then she said, calm as ever, "You made your bed. Now lie in it." She didn't even let me in. I stood there for a while before leaving. I didn't cry until I reached the bus stop. I kept thinking about how my whole life I'd been running away from her, into another version of her, and now back to the same door, only to be shut out again. I've been staying in a small motel since then, trying to figure out what to do next. I don't hate her, but I don't think she loves me either, not in the way I understand love. She loved the idea of me, the one that made her look like a strong single mother who sacrificed everything, not the real me who wanted to breathe, make mistakes, live. I guess that's what I wanted to breathe. I just didn't think it would feel this lonely. Update 1. I wasn't even sure if I was going to write again. But here I am. So after that night, I tried calling her a few times. No answer. I sent a couple of texts, just asking if she was okay. Nothing emotional. She didn't reply. Then my aunt messaged me out of the blue, asking what really happened between me and Mom. I told her that Mom refused to let me in, and she sounded surprised. She said Mom told everyone that I had abandoned her years ago when I got pregnant and ran off with a married man. At first I laughed because it sounded insane. I've never been pregnant, never even close, but my aunt wasn't joking. She said Mom has been telling that story for years, that I had a baby, left it with her, and cut contact because I was ashamed. Apparently some relatives even met the child. I didn't know what to say. I hung up the phone and just sat there for a while, thinking maybe she'd confused me with someone else. The next day, I went to her house again. I didn't tell her I was coming because I knew she wouldn't let me in if she had time to prepare. When she opened the door, she looked startled. I asked her about what people were saying. She just stared at me for a moment and said, "You shouldn't believe gossip." I told her I'd heard she's been saying I have a child, and she rolled her eyes like I was the one being dramatic. That's when I noticed the toys. Little cars and blocks near the couch, a small pair of sneakers by the door, and a half-eaten yogurt cup on the counter. I asked her whose they were. She said they belonged to the neighbor's son. I asked if she was babysitting. She said sometimes, but there was something off in the way she said it, too rehearsed, too quick. She started walking toward the door, making it clear I should leave. I tried to ask one more time, but she just said, "You left me once. Don't come here acting like you care now." So I left, but I couldn't get those toys out of my head. A few days later, I got a message from my cousin. She said she saw Mom at the park with a little boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old. She said Mom introduced him as Noah, her grandson, and told everyone that her daughter had made bad choices and wasn't ready to be a mother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked my cousin if she was sure, and she swore she was. She even took a photo from far away because she thought it was strange that Mom suddenly had a grandson. When she sent it to me, I just stared at the picture for a long time. Mom was sitting on a bench, the boy next to her holding a juice box. He had my hair color, my eyes, even a similar expression. It made me feel sick. That night I did some digging. I checked public records just to make sure she hadn't actually done something insane like register a child under my name. It took a while, but when I searched my own name through a few databases, I found something: a birth certificate. My name listed as the mother. The father's space was blank. I froze. The date said 2020. I don't even know where to start explaining how impossible that is. I was married to Brandon then, but I definitely wasn't pregnant. I called my cousin again and asked her if she knew anyone who could help me find out more. Her boyfriend works in an office that handles civil paperwork, and he confirmed it wasn't a mistake, the child exists legally. Noah, born 2020, mother listed as me, registered at a clinic in the same area my mom lives in. The only person who could have done it was her. I didn't even sleep that night. I went back to her house early the next morning and banged on the door until she opened it. I told her everything I found and demanded to know why she used my name. At first, she acted confused, like she didn't understand what I was saying. Then her face changed. She told me I had no right to judge her after what I did. I asked what that even meant, and she started yelling that she gave her whole life to me, that I left her with nothing, and that she did what she had to do to survive. I kept asking who the child was, and she finally snapped, saying, "You owe me this life. You think walking away meant freedom? Everything you have, everything you are, came from me." Then she slammed the door. I don't know what that means exactly, if she used my identity to get money or benefits, or if the kid is actually related to me somehow, but whatever she did, it's not just emotional anymore, it's legal. My name is on an official birth record. Update 2. It's been a little over a month since I found out about the forged birth certificate and the child my mother's been raising under my name. After I found that record, I contacted a lawyer and explained everything. He told me it was serious enough to file an identity fraud report, but also warned me that once I did, it could trigger a deeper investigation not just into her actions, but mine too. That part scared me. I had no involvement, but having my name on that paper made me part of it, whether I wanted to be or not. So I decided to take it slow. I gathered documents, proof, texts, everything I could before taking any official step. That's when Brandon came back into the picture. I hadn't heard from him since our divorce almost a year ago. Suddenly he was calling, texting, leaving voicemails saying he saw the post and wanted to help me fix things before they got worse. At first I ignored him. Then I got an email from him, long, dramatic, full of pity. He said he'd heard rumors about me being investigated for child fraud, which wasn't even true yet, and that I should let him handle it through one of his legal contacts. I knew what that meant, control disguised as help. He'd done it before. I didn't respond. But a few days later, things escalated. Someone reported my mother's house to child services. They showed up and found the boy Noah living there. I only know because my cousin called me that night. Apparently, Kathy had a complete breakdown. She called half the family screaming that I'd set her up and stolen her child. I hadn't called anyone. I hadn't even filed the fraud report yet, but in her mind, it was me. When I tried to call her, her number was disconnected. I drove to her house the next morning, but there were 2 police cars out front, and the neighbors said she'd been taken away for questioning. Noah was placed in temporary care for his own safety. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. Inside was a copy of her will. In it, she named me as Noah's legal guardian in the event of her death or incapacitation. There was also a handwritten note tucked in the back. It said, "You were supposed to love me enough to protect me. You turned me in instead." I can't even describe what that did to me. I hadn't reported her, but clearly someone had, and now she believed I'd betrayed her. In her mind, I was the villain. I was the ungrateful daughter who destroyed her family. My lawyer advised me to stay quiet until we knew what charges, if any, might come up. But Brandon took the situation and ran with it. He started messaging mutual acquaintances, hinting that I'd inherited my mother's instability and was spiraling again. He even called one of my old friends from college to ask if I was safe to be around children. The man who used to monitor my every move suddenly had the perfect narrative that I was repeating my mother's mistakes, that I was a danger to myself and others. It spread fast. I could feel people looking at me differently, even though I hadn't done a thing. The worst part was realizing I was being backed into the same corner my mother always stood in, isolated, misunderstood, and judged. And the irony is that the person who put me there was the one I ran from to escape becoming like her. A week after that letter arrived, I went back to her house to collect a few old documents the lawyer said might help clear my name. The front door was locked, but the neighbor had a spare key since the police had taken Kathy in for evaluation. The house felt empty, but not abandoned like she'd just stepped out for a moment. On the kitchen table, under a stack of old mail, I found another envelope with my name on it. This one wasn't sealed. Inside were 2 things, a small Polaroid photo of Noah in the backyard holding a balloon, and a piece of paper with a name written on it, Brandon's. There was no explanation, just his name in her handwriting. I stood there staring at it, trying to make sense of it. For a second, I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd just written it down for some unrelated reason. But deep down, I knew better. My mother didn't write things by accident. I took the envelope home and sat on my couch for hours, thinking about the possibility I didn't even want to entertain that Brandon might somehow be connected to this entire thing. He'd always had this strange fascination with control, with power over me. What if the 2 of them had stayed in contact after the divorce? What if he was the one who tipped off child services just to pull me back into his orbit? The thought made me sick. But it would also explain how he knew about the fraud investigation before it even started. I didn't sleep that night. I started reading through my old emails, texts, even the shared bank accounts from when we were married, looking for anything that tied them together. And then I found it a transfer from my mother's account to his business account 2 years ago, labeled consulting fee. I stared at that screen for what felt like forever. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All this time, I thought I'd escaped my mother's control by marrying Brandon. In reality, he'd just learned from her how to keep me tied to him through guilt, through money, through manipulation. And somewhere along the way, they started working together. Update 3. After I found that transfer from my mother's account to Brandon's, I couldn't think about anything else. It tied them together in a way that made everything suddenly make sense and made me sick. My manipulative ex and my controlling mother hadn't just crossed paths by chance, they'd been working together. I contacted my lawyer to access my mother's old financial and legal documents. Since her assets were now under investigation, he managed to get copies through her public defender. Inside one of the folders was a sealed envelope addressed "For the Guardian of Noah, surname," with my name underneath. Inside it was Noah's original birth certificate, the real one. The biological mother section listed Kathy's name. The father's name had been blacked out with permanent marker. The lawyer had the document examined. The redaction was recent. Whoever covered that name wanted to hide something, and not just from the system, from me. I went to the hospital listed on the certificate and learned that the mother who gave birth that day was, in fact, Kathy. I sat in the parking lot holding the paper, feeling everything click into place. My mother hadn't stolen a child's identity to torment me. She had given birth herself and built a lie around it. She'd created Noah to replace the version of me she lost when I finally escaped her. A few days later, the social worker on Noah's case called. Kathy's psychiatric evaluation was going badly. She was refusing to cooperate, insisting I was conspiring against her and that Noah was being kept from his real mother. When I said Kathy actually was his real mother, the social worker asked if I had proof. That hesitation told me how deep my mother's manipulation had gone. The social worker allowed a supervised visit. I didn't know if Noah would recognize me. He sat there holding a toy car, quiet and cautious. He had my eyes and my mother's smile, like staring at everything I'd run from and everything she'd built in my absence. When he called me mommy by mistake, I didn't correct him. He wasn't mine by blood, but he was tied to everything stolen in my name. After that visit, I decided I couldn't let him go back to the same environment that broke me. I told my lawyer I wanted to apply for guardianship. He said it would be complicated, that being linked to a fraud case and forged documents could backfire. I didn't care. I wasn't trying to play hero. I just couldn't watch another child grow up under her control. That night, Brandon messaged me again. He said he'd heard about the guardianship attempt and could help me look stable in court if I met with him. I ignored it until he sent a photo of me leaving the social worker's office, captioned, "Still not learning to stay out of trouble, huh?" I went straight to the police the next morning. I filed a harassment report and gave them his messages and the photo. A few days later, my cousin called and said Brandon had been visiting my mother's care facility, pretending to be a family friend helping with her legal defense. That was the last missing piece. He wasn't just a bystander, he'd been involved from the start. Through my lawyer, I confronted him. He denied everything, said I was paranoid, that I was making stories again. But I've learned that denial usually means you're close to the truth. My cousin helped me gather proof: bank transfers, emails, and a few recordings tying him to my mother's forged documents. It's enough to make him nervous, if nothing else. As for my mother, she's still under psychiatric care. The latest report says she barely speaks. When she does, she repeats one thing over and over. She took my life away. I'm not sure who she means, me, or the version of herself she tried to rebuild through Noah. Noah's hearing is in 2 weeks. If it goes well, I'll get temporary guardianship. I don't know what comes next or whether I'll be allowed to keep him. All I know is that this time, whatever happens, it will be real. Final update. It's been a year since, so let me give everyone a final update. After Kathy was institutionalized, things moved slowly. Social workers, court hearings, home inspections, all of it dragged on for months. I ended up with full guardianship of Noah. Noah has adjusted faster than I did. He's small, curious, quiet at first, but laughs like he's never known anything bad. The first night he stayed with me, he asked if he could sleep on the floor because beds are for guests. That broke something in me. I realized how much of Kathy's control seeped into every part of his life, the same way it did mine. He wasn't used to comfort, he was used to earning it. I spent weeks trying to make the apartment feel warm. I painted, bought toys, tried to cook like my grandmother used to. It wasn't perfect, but slowly it started to feel like a home. The biggest change was that for once, there wasn't a voice telling me what I owed anyone. No one hovering over my choices, no one claiming sacrifice as leverage. Kathy's case took a strange turn. Her mental evaluation confirmed what I'd suspected: she wasn't evil. She was sick in a way that made her cruelty logical to her. She truly believed she was protecting us. When the doctor said she had a personality disorder linked to abandonment trauma, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to hate her more for having an explanation. Another part just felt tired. I visited her twice at the facility. The first time she looked at me like I was a stranger. She was slipping, and all her walls, the control, the guilt, the manipulation were falling away. What was left was a scared, aging woman who didn't know where she ended and where her children began. Before I left the second visit, she told me I'd finally become her. I didn't argue, but she wasn't completely wrong. I understand now how easy it is to become the person who takes control because you're terrified of being powerless. The difference is, I want to break that pattern, not repeat it. When I look at Noah now, I see a chance to finally do that, to give him what neither of us ever had: a life that doesn't start with fear. I still don't forgive Kathy, but I don't resent her either. I just see her clearly now, a cruel old bitter woman.